All right. Hello, you beautiful outposters out there. Welcome to another Outpost Frequencies. Uh, you just got me tonight. It's just me. And so I'm going to do my best to try to talk through everything that I can. But if you do want to join me on this wonderful stream, you can reach me at Drunken Yoda on Skype. Just give me a call, and we'll bring you on if you want to tell me where I'm wrong, where I'm right. Nobody tells me where I'm wrong. I'm always right. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Loki. And I'm a little mystified by the hate. And I'm I think there is a a tendency right now to instinctively knee jerk hate anything that comes out from Disney, especially woke Disney. And it's something Disney is. It's well deserved. They they asked for it. They got it. This is on them that this reaction is taking place. But with Loki, I feel like some of it is unfounded. So I watched Nerdrotic. Nerdrotic was all up in arms about it. I've seen various Midnight's Edge and a couple of others who are very upset about Loki, and it just completely sucks and it destroys the MCU, and it doesn't seem to understand, that the fans are like looking at it going, you've just blown up everything that was important, and I think there's a bit of well, one, I think there's a bit of hey, look, guys, it's the first episode. The things that you're complaining about may be the point of the show, and I'm willing to give it to the end. Um, I don't like, and I'll tell you what taught me this, but in reverse was Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, and to a lesser extent, the Voltron series. Um, these two shows taught me that you know what, sometimes things are awesome until they shit the bed, and they're not. And it could go the other way around, you know. The original, the Star Trek: The Next Generation series. You watch season one, whew, bad. There's maybe there is one good episode I can pull out of season one of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and that's the one with the Binars. And I say good episode, not great episode, not superlative episode. I mean reasonably solid episode. It's not like it doesn't have problems. But Star Trek The Next Generation over the course of the next two seasons turned out to be very, very good. Second season, a lot of people push aside the second season. I think that's a mistake. I think there's a lot more that's good in the second season. And then by the third season, it turned out to be one of the greatest shows on television. Um, I think that I still have in my heart the original Star Trek. I think that's my go-to, probably because that's what I grew up on. I say grew up on. I was like, 7 or 8 when I would come home after during first grade, second grade, and watch reruns of Star Trek, and it was just the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I think there is a case to be made that the Next Generation is a better, more quality show, but I still like the original series better. But that's more of an emotional thing than it is a judging it fairly. So we all have our biases, and that's my point. Right now, there's a whole bunch of bias against Disney right now, and there's a whole bunch of bias when we watch an episode and it does things that shakes things up that we don't like. Now, I'm not saying that Loki is a great show. It's a terrible show because we don't know which one it is yet. But I don't see anything in the first episode that made me go, this is just garbage. I saw more in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier that made me think it was garbage. Um, because there's some immutable truths of life, and there's things that are clearly you're trying to go a political angle, where other things it's more of a I am making this story choice based on the rules of the universe. So you can't say that there's anything political about the Infinity Stones. And this is one of the things that everybody went completely nuts on. So I hate what they've done to the Infinity Stones. Guys have it in drawers. You saying that they were worth nothing, that they're completely worthless? No, that's not what they're saying at all. And I think there's a big misnomer on that. The TVA, which one is part of the Marvel universe, it's been out there. Now, some of this is going to have to do with your threshold of pain when it comes to dealing with time travel shenanigans and how you're going to deal with multiverse shenanigans. So I'm going to take it back to Star Trek The Next Generation. One of the episodes I really, really enjoy is called Parallels. And those of you that watch Red Letter Media, you know that that's Mike's. It's his most hated episode. I think it's a fine episode. I think it explores some interesting sci-fi theories, and I just like the idea of it. He hates it because he's saying that philosophically there's nothing special about you if you are just one of an infinite amount of I am one of an infinite amount of drunken Yodas. One of us decided not to make YouTube videos and the other decided to. And the people in the universe where I decided not to make YouTube videos are infinitely happier than the ones that are. I'm okay with that. Judging by the number of viewers I have, I can clearly see that that's what it is. But that's okay. I'm all right with it. So, anyway, so the point is that a lot of people said that what he said, I should say Mike says, is that Parallels ruin Star Trek because it makes everything irrelevant from what we're watching, because why is what we're watching more important than what anybody else is watching? So now you take this into Loki. Loki is saying, okay, there is a sacred timeline. It's more of it is a timeline, they call it, but it's also more of a sacred universe. And it's a way to keep them there from being a multiverse. If somebody screws with the timeline, then you get a second universe sprouts off, and then you end up with multiverses. And the multiverses are created by branching timelines. So they do their best to trim those branches, as Captain America said in Endgame, clip all the branches. And that's why the timeline exists, and things are supposed to happen according to the sacred timeline. Now, Loki understandably chafes about this idea that he has no free will. Okay, good. He's making it known within the context of the series he doesn't like the idea that he doesn't have free will. And I don't like the idea. It's like, well, they're bringing up an idea. The main character is immediately taking issue with it. And you're saying, okay, now the Marvel universe is ruined because everything that's happened is supposed to happen. Nobody has free will. It's like, well, maybe that's the point of the series. We don't know. I find this interesting. That's just me. But if that's what's happening, then okay, fine. That's what they're going to explore is the idea of free will versus, one timeline. And my guess, because there is a movie coming out called Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, that there is going to end up being a multiverse, possibly based on what Loki did here, and maybe a combination of what Wanda did in WandaVision, what Loki does here, creates this multiverse of madness, and that there will be a multiverse that will be sustained. Now, one of the things I don't understand is that in Doctor Strange, the Ancient One did actually specify that there were multiverses and had like a bunch of Doctor Stranges kind of having the same LSD mind mess, hallucination, whatever was going on to kind of illustrate that. So is there a multiverse or is there not a multiverse? Well, that's a good question. And then when you add on to the fact that Mr. Doctor Strange, I didn't go to 12 years of medical school to be called Mr. Strange. Doctor Strange decided to look ahead and see all of the different 14,605,000, whatever the number was. So wouldn't those all if creating a branching timeline would create a branching universe, wouldn't those be 14 million universes? So, one wonders if the TVA, if the space lizards aren't lying to the TVA. I mean, there's all kinds of directions that they could go to here. But we watch the first episode and we decide this is the way it is. And then the other thing I found interesting is that, okay, so they said, I guess the Infinity Stones are worthless. No, they're not worthless in the universe. They're not worthless. But the TVA is outside of the universe. And it was clearly stated in Endgame that the Infinity Stones create what we know as the flow of time. So if you take an Infinity Stone out and create a branching universe with a new set of Infinity Stones to create a new flow of time, and then the TVA comes in and clips that branch, then those Infinity Stones are suddenly powerless and useless because one, they're outside of the timeline, and two, the timeline that they were in is now it's gone. So that there is no timeline, there is no universe for them to interact with anymore. So they just become stones. Now, people are very upset at this idea. I'm like, well, why? This is kind of spelled out if you do any thinking about it. I mean, it's even kind of spelled out within the movies. And it's like, well, I have to really dig for it. It's like, okay, well, do you want it spoon fed or do you want to, think a little bit? I didn't find it that hard. Maybe I'm super smart, and I think that's been established. But as I sit here drinking an Arby's root beer with rum in it, clearly I know what I'm doing. I went to Disney Park. Obviously, I don't know what I'm doing. My point is that I didn't find these things horrifying. I didn't find them irritating. I found them okay. This could be interesting, and everybody just got so emotional, so up in arms about these story ideas. It's not like after the Infinity Gauntlet saga. If you've read the second Infinity Gauntlet saga, it's like, well, there's these new things out here, and the Infinity Stones don't work. Writers were always making up excuses to why the Infinity Stones would not work the second time because they needed them to not work the second time. They needed new things and new reasons, and you can't just keep recycling the same old power. I'll point to how many more Death Stars do they have to build in the Star Wars universe, right? I mean, you keep bringing them up, and everybody's tired of them. Do you want to see them bring out the Infinity Stones and use them again and keep doing more Infinity? Do we really want this damn thing to be infinite? Because I don't. So you guys tell me. Put in the chat, or I don't know if you're on the chat or in the comments below. But that's kind of my take on the whole thing. Is like, one, I enjoy Loki. Oh, here was the other thing that Nerdrotic said. He was very upset that they made Loki look like a buffoon. I was like, well, I didn't see that he looked that much like a buffoon, but quite frankly, they did that in Ragnarok. As soon as he came out and he said, "I've been falling for 30 minutes," it's like, okay, they effectively neutered him at that point. When he was being played by Anthony Hopkins still as the pseudo Odin, and they saw Thor, it's like, oh shit. That was it. I mean, Loki as the main bad guy was done. And I don't know. I kind of liked that he had this cathartic moment where he watched his life as it would have been, and it knocked some sense into him. There's also a theory that maybe the Mind Stone, the staff, whatever, was screwing with his head a little bit. Maybe. I think he was more still trying to deal, like, okay, if you go back, let's go back through the beginning. All right. So we got Thor. Thor is like, Loki finds out that he is a frost giant and he's jealous of Thor being king. And then he finds out that there was no way he was ever going to be king. It wasn't just that Thor beat him for whatever reason in his father's eyes. It's that he was a frost giant and there was no way he was going to put a frost, and he had to deal with all that. And he went a little, and given how every therapy show, every Oprah show for decades has always been about how I hate my parents and people are so effed up by their parents. And these guys live for thousands of years. I'm like, okay, fine. He's a little messed up. He tried to take over Earth. And then he kind of, yeah, he is what he is, but he's still, he's not as, he becomes a, I don't know, what would you call him? A redeemed villain, an anti hero, whatever you want to call him. And part of the reason is because Tom Hiddleston is just so goddamn enjoyable watching him play him. And so I didn't see that he was a buffoon in this. I see that he was powerless. The only joke I didn't like was when he tried to use his powers and everybody was giggling. He's like, it's like they've played out that stupid type of joke way too many times. Usually this works. Like it's almost an impotence joke or something. I just don't like the joke, but I didn't think that they turned him into a mess or something like that. So I don't know. I guess I have a whole different take on Loki in general. And this is probably going to be a short one because I don't have anybody to talk to, and I'm very, very lonely. But in general, I wanted to kind of get out my thoughts on how I thought Loki turned out, because I just didn't buy these complaints. I don't buy the complaints that they've ruined the MCU. I don't buy the complaints that this is a terrible show, when I found it plenty entertaining, and I haven't seen the whole show yet. Now, look, I liked WandaVision at the beginning. I liked the goofy play on different sitcoms, because I grew up with those types of sitcoms, mostly in reruns, but I dug that. I like the idea of grief and all that, but then they shit the bed because it was just a CGI fight at the end. It was a lot more enjoyable to see um, Vision argue with himself about who was right using the ship of Theseus uh, metaphor. But the I didn't like Wanda's. She did not get nearly enough comeuppance at the end. She should have been. She was the bad guy. She was the villain. She was torturing a town, whether indirectly or not understanding, or certainly not meaning to hurt anybody, but didn't realize what she was doing. There had to be more redemption. There had to be more restitution for her to do. And she just fucks off to Alaska in a cabin. And all those people are left with all that trauma with their kids and everything else. I'm like going, yeah, you should have done more. You should have done more to make up for it. You should have paid some sort of price or whatever. It wasn't that I disliked the whole sitcom narrative, but I didn't like how they brought the new Captain Marvel or Spectrum or whatever she is, and the whole show just petered out. Um, bringing in Evan Peters and saying, "Oh, it's Quicksilver," but it's not. Are we doing the multiverse? Oh, we're just teasing it. He's just a loser next door that watches porn or something. They shit the bed. Falcon and Winter Soldier was horribly uneven. There was the second to last show was actually very, very good. Had some good ideas and good things I really liked. And then the last episode shit the bed. So Sam just talking to the senator saying do better, like straight out of the SJW playbook, clearly throwing a lot of politics in there. And granted, this particular show would lend itself to more politics, but it tried to put in, it's not something that's going to hold up, and well, it doesn't hold up now, but it's certainly going to date itself very, very quickly. But Loki is just nonsense, and I don't mean that I don't mean that as an insult. I mean Loki is just multiverse time travel nonsense. and we're gonna have Loki going through fun adventures where he got to find himself and or a variant of himself and figure out what's going on, and he's gonna have to make a choice, and maybe he's the one that screws up everything and creates the multiverse and blows up the TVA. I'm so okay. If this kicks off everything, I'm fine with that. It's fine. I'm not. I'm just not that. I just don't see these story choices as destroying the MCU and destroying everything that happened before it. I just don't see that. Well, the Infinity Stones are just nothing now. No, they're copies of the Infinity Stones, for lack of a better term, from alternate timelines that got clipped, and now since there's no universe for them to be a part of, they have no power. Okay, what's wrong with that? Oh, it destroys it. No, it doesn't destroy anything. Are you listening to the dialogue? I know you people have watched, especially you, Screen Rant or Screen Crush, or all you others out there who have seen these movies 50,000 times. Pay attention to something besides the punching and the pew pews. There is some interesting ideas filtered in there. Could they have expanded on it? Maybe made toned down some of the stupid CGI fights in favor of a little bit more scientific and philosophical discussion. That would be nice. But I think that there is something there. Maybe the problem is that they don't trust themselves or they don't trust the audience to understand these things, and they don't want to get into more of those details because this is supposed to be a fun superhero show. And DC tried to do that, and look how that turned out. Okay, I suppose. But I mean, to go back to Star Trek or Star Trek The Next Generation, they certainly got into a lot of that. And people still love it to this day. And it's still a very popular property, despite Paramount's best efforts to flush that down the crapper. Picard, Discovery. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents on Loki. And don't have a lot of viewers here today, so I don't have Dom with me to really discuss anything. So that's okay. We'll leave this up as something you guys can talk about, discuss. I want to know what you have to say, though. Go in the comments down below. I really want to know. If you're at lastmovieoutpost.com, you can find this article with this live stream. I want you to go down the discuss comments, and I want you to tell me where you think I'm completely wrong, or do you think I have a point? And I want to know, because I think it's a good discussion. I think that there's some overblown hate that is honestly earned by Disney. The hate and the concerns and the things that Disney has done to properties. Captain Marvel, so bad. So I think there is certainly some anger and some biases that Disney earned because they screwed up badly by sticking all their stupid politics into this stuff. But I enjoy these characters. I read Marvel comics when I was a kid. I'm going to tend to watch this stuff. I'm going to try to be as honest as possible what I think. And those of you who have listened to me for a while, you know that I wasn't that big a fan of Falcon and Winter Soldier. There were some good episodes, some very bad episodes. I was okay with Falcon or with WandaVision until I wasn't. I really disliked. My dogs are all barking. Sorry. I really disliked Captain Marvel, and my review on that was scathing. So I mean, as much as I love DC and Marvel superheroes, I'm not just going to give them a pass if I think they're bad. But I don't know. I don't see what other people are seeing on Loki, and it's ruined things and everything else, especially when I haven't seen the entire show yet. And as much as we dislike Kathleen Kennedy, let's say, or some of the suits over at Disney, there's a lot of people involved in making a show, and the writers and the directors and all of them can be can be faulted. So I'll be reviewing this every week, like I always do, and I'll have my radar up on these things. But I don't think this first episode, I didn't see what Nerdrotic and some others have seen. Or I'm interpreting them differently than they are. And part of it is because I want to let the show play out. I want to see what happens from first episode to sixth episode or eighth. I don't know how many episodes there's going to be. I want to see how it plays out. Because I thought WandaVision was good until it wasn't. I thought Game of Thrones was the greatest show ever until season 8. Um, and I've seen other shows that started out bad and turned out great. So I think it's only fair to at least take the entire series into and watch the entire series and then make a decision on whether or not it was good because the story is only 1/6 of the way done. So there you go. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So that's all I've got. Again, leave your comments down below. www.lastmovieoutpost.com. And if you could, if you've watched some of my episodes, maybe you saw the Disney park episode. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm working on my James Bond. I'm halfway through my part 3 of James Bond, and I'm going to take a little break from that because I'm kind of James Bond out. It's becoming a chore to make this video, and there's some other things I want to do. But any videos I make, if you like them, you could really help us out by liking and sharing. Whether you share it to Reddit, whether you share it to Twitter, Facebook, however you want to do it. But even if you just hit the like button, I can't depend on the YouTube algorithm, and it's one click for you for hours of video setup, all this stuff for me. And I'm not trying to complain. I really enjoy doing this, but I'm asking for your help if you could do that. It would really be great for the site and for everything. So, and then please leave your comments down below. I do want to know what you think, whether you do it on the YouTube site or you do it in the Discuss page on www.lastmovieoutpost.com. As always, you can see us on Twitter at Movie Outpost. My personal Twitter is at Drunken Yoda 1. We are on Facebook / Last Movie Outpost, and I think we're working possibly on Instagram page. I have to look at that. We have an Instagram, but we haven't done much with it. But I think we're looking at ramping that up and trying to do some things with that. Keep that in mind. And I also want to give a shout out to Not George Lucas, who's been helping me getting some extra videos put out onto our channel, which is really nice because that gives us more content. And I believe, I don't want to promise anything, but I believe he's going to try to do a stream that will be more in tune with our readers and viewers across the pond in UK and Europe and that sort of thing, where time zones don't really work out. When I do this in the evenings, it's midnight, 1 o'clock over there. So that'll be good for them. And I really appreciate his help, and I think he's done some great videos. I love his Star Wars video right now, so go and check it out. And that being said, thank you again for watching, and I will see you on the next stream.